The morning started with Mendelssohn's Wedding March blaring through my bedroom window like a punch I didn't see coming. At first, I thought I was stuck in some bizarre dream, but when I yanked open the curtains, reality hit harder than the music. A wedding arch was being set up in my driveway, not next to it, not on the street, but right where I park my truck. Rows of folding chairs were lined up like they were ready to salute, white ribbons fluttering in the breeze, and a guy in a tux was testing a microphone with a casual check, check. I stood there, half awake in a hoodie and boxers, wondering if I'd slipped into a parallel universe or if some unhinged reality show was filming without my consent. Nope. This was real. A full-on catered, mic-checked, dress-pressed wedding was unfolding on my property without so much as a text to warn me. My first clear thought was, what kind of neighborhood nonsense is this? 3 months ago, I'd moved into what I thought was a peaceful suburb. I bought my house fair and square, nice yard, solid garage, no nosy neighbors. Or so I believed. That fantasy crumbled the day Linda showed up across the street. From the moment her oversized SUV rolled in like it owned the block, the quiet was history. Linda wasn't just a control freak. She was the type who treated property lines like loose guidelines. It started small, missing garden tools, Amazon packages accidentally delivered to her porch that never made it back to me. Once, she held an impromptu HOA meeting in my backyard without even a heads up. I let it slide, figuring it wasn't worth the fight. But this morning, Linda crossed a line she couldn't uncross. I stormed outside in slippers, hoodie still unzipped, hit by a wave of roses and industrial-strength hairspray. A DJ was warming up with Ed Sheeran like we were at a banquet hall, not my front lawn. A red carpet was rolled across my concrete like it was leading to a Hollywood premiere. I spotted Linda next to a bride I didn't know, fluffing her veil like she was staging a photo shoot. When she saw me, she gave a little wave, the kind you'd get from someone dismissing a waiter. I asked what was going on and she smiled like she was doing me a favor. Oh, good morning. It's just a small wedding for my niece. Isn't it lovely? I stared, waiting for a hidden camera to pop out. No luck. She kept talking, saying it was just a few hours and I wasn't even using my driveway. That was her logic. My empty driveway was an open invitation. I told her she had no right to be there, and she laughed, patting my arm like I was a kid throwing a tantrum. It's just a driveway, she said. Don't be selfish. This is the most important day of my niece's life. She gestured to the bride, who looked embarrassed but too spineless to stand up to Aunt Linda. I glanced at the stranger sipping punch on my grass, using my hose, parking on my lawn like it was a free lot. One guy even gave me a thumbs up, saying, "Congrats, man, you look great." I told him I wasn't the groom. He shrugged and went back to his drink. I demanded Linda clear out immediately. She raised her sunglasses and hissed, "Don't be that neighbor. No one likes that neighbor." Then she leaned closer. "Do you really want to ruin a wedding over a little space?" I almost laughed. That little space was my property, taxed, mowed, shoveled, and maintained by me. I asked if she had permits from the city or HOA. She smirked. "It's private property and you weren't using it." That was her whole argument. That's when I snapped, not outwardly but inside. Linda thought I'd back down, shamed into silence by her tool-wrapped trespassing. She didn't know I had a petty streak a mile wide and a smart home system ready to back it up. I gave her 10 minutes to move. She rolled her eyes and walked off, calling to the photographer. She didn't take me seriously. That's when I knew this was going to be fun. I went inside, locked the door, and opened the app for my sprinkler system installed last summer with adjustable zones and water pressure I could crank to 11. I also had outdoor speakers tied to my home theater, all controlled by my phone. Linda had no idea her niece's big day was about to meet a wall of water and the raw chaos of Norwegian black metal. If she wanted my driveway as her stage, I'd give her a show she'd never forget. I stood by the window, timer ticking. Guests kept Arrive wine glimos, pickups, all ignoring my private property sign. A woman set up a cupcake table right in front of my garage. A kid in a tiny tux peed in my flower bed while his mom snapped a photo. I wasn't mad at him. He was probably the only one who knew he was breaking rules. When the timer hit 0, I called the non-emergency police line, explaining calmly that over 30 people, a DJ, a bride, and a cake stand were on my property without permission. The dispatcher sounded skeptical until I laid out the details, then promised to send someone. She clearly didn't grasp the force of nature that was Linda. 15 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. The officer, a tired-looking guy in his 50s, talked to Linda first. I watched from my porch as she spun a dramatic tale, pointing at me like I'd burned her house down. By the time he reached me, he looked like he'd rather be fishing. I explained everything: no permission, no notice, and a clear request to leave. He asked if I'd maybe said yes and forgotten. I stared, wondering how anyone could forget, agreeing to host a wedding 5 feet from their garage. He mumbled about civil disputes and said pressing trespassing charges would mean filing a report downtown. He wasn't about to drag a bride off my lawn with guests watching. I asked if he'd let someone throw a party in his driveway. His answer: I'd probably let him finish and sort it later. That's when I knew I was on my own. Linda strutted past, smirking like she'd won a lawsuit. Told you the cops were fine with it, she said loudly. Some people are just cranky. A guest laughed and raised a glass. I smiled back, went inside, and shut the door. Through the blinds I watched the ceremony, star chairs filled, a violinist playing softly, the minister walking up the aisle. Linda hovered by the bride like a stage mom. The wedding rolled on like nothing was wrong. I sat on my couch, teeth gritted, watching my security cams. 3 angles showed every chair, every car, every trespassing foot. My finger hovered over the sprinkler app. I could flood the place in waves, but I waited for the perfect moment. An hour later, the reception speeches began. The DJ played smooth jazz, and a man, probably the bride's dad, thanked everyone for coming. Linda stood beside him, glowing, holding a glass of something fizzy. She didn't notice her niece's veil had fallen off and was being trampled by a kid doing cartwheels. Guests started wandering into my backyard, teens snapping photos by my shed, someone opening my gate without asking. One guy dragged a chair across my lawn like it was his. That was it. I skipped the sprinklers for a better plan. In the garage, I grabbed my Bluetooth barbecue speakers, paired them to my phone, and hid them around the lawn. Guests noticed but thought I was helping. Linda gave me a thumbs up, clueless. Back inside, I queued a playlist I'd saved for my HVY or music night's Grave of Serenity. I didn't hit play yet. Linda was at the mic, droning about love and community, even calling me a generous neighbor. I nearly choked. She thought she was the hero. Then the bride stepped up for the big kiss and I knew it was time. As she leaned in, veil fluttering, I slammed the play button. The speakers erupted with a death metal scream that could wake the dead. Drums pounded, guitars shredded, and a growl tore through the violin's melody like a chainsaw. The bride flinched mid-kiss, the DJ ripped off his headphones, and then the sprinklers hit delayed just enough for the music to land. Jets of cold water blasted the chairs, the DJ booth, the arch. Guests screamed, dresses soaked instantly. A champagne tower shattered, an old man slipped into a puddle of petals, and the photographer's camera drowned under a napkin. I stood at my window, arms crossed, watching chaos unfold in slow motion. People ran, slipping, some clutching cupcakes like life rafts. The violinist bolted, heels clacking. The music roared on, a demonic anthem echoing from every corner. Linda screamed loudest, charging my door like a wet linebacker, mascara streaming, hair flattened. She pounded twice before I cracked the door open, music shaking the walls. She yelled about lawyers and emotional damage. I held up my phone, cranked the volume, and said, "I'm using my property now." Her mouth opened, but I shut the door before she could speak. She kept banging, but it was over. The wedding was a wreck. The groom stood dripping, lost. The bride shrieked about her dress, yanking off her heels. Guests fled like it was a war zone. One guy stood frozen, holding a sandwich, staring into nothingness. The music faded naturally like a concert no one wanted. The sprinklers ran a bit longer, turning my yard into a swamp. I stepped outside, hands in my pockets, surveying the mess. Linda stood fuming, trying to rally stragglers, her phone dripping as she snapped photos for EVY Denke. I picked up a soggy Forever and Always napkin and a chunk of cake, tossing them in the trash without a word. She screamed about assaulting her guests and ruining her niece's day. I shrugged. If you'd moved when I asked, this wouldn't have happened. She stormed off, heels squelching, dragging a guest behind her. By sunset, the driveway was empty, the red carpet dragged down the block by the wind. My speakers hummed faintly, water dripping off them. I stood in the fading light, tired but triumphant. That night, I edited my security footage into a highlight reel set to the same metal track, titled "Don't Host a Wedding in Someone's Driveway Without Asking." I sent it to friends for laughs, not expecting it to blow up online. But it did. The HOA called an emergency meeting the next morning. Linda's doing, no doubt. She sat front and center, arms crossed, with a young woman, maybe a bridesmaid, looking like she hadn't slept. I walked in with coffee and a folder, calm as ever. Linda launched into a dramatic speech, calling my sprinklers an act of malice, and my speakers a sonic weapon. She claimed thousands in damages and slid blurry photos of wet guests across the table. Then it was my turn. I laid out timestamps, high-res security stills, and a police call log showing I tried to resolve it CIVILY. I included screenshots of Linda's past boundary violations and highlighted the HOA bylaws. Unauthorized use of private property was a clear violation. The room went quiet. A board member asked Linda if she had written consent. She stammered about, assuming it was fine. Another asked about permits. She called it a small family gathering, but went silent when pressed about the DJ and vendors. The board whispered, flipping through my evidence. I sipped my coffee, savoring the moment. Linda squirmed, realizing she'd miscalculated. The chair announced she'd violated multiple rules leading to police, endangering guests, causing a disturbance. They fined her the maximum, suspended her HOA voting rights for 6 months, banned her from hosting events for a year, and required board approval for future gatherings. Linda's jaw dropped. She tried to protest, but no one listened. The chair thanked me for my patience and documentation. I nodded, gathered my papers, and left. A board member caught me outside, asking if I'd join the HOA board. I said I'd think about it. Back home, the driveway was still damp, but mine again. That night, I saw the HOA meeting minutes online. Linda's name appeared 5 times under disciplinary actions. I smiled, clicked my name for the board vote, just for kicks. The next day, a deflated balloon swayed in my hedge, the last trace of the chaos. I stood on my porch, coffee in hand, soaking in the quiet. No violins, no DJ, just birds and a distant lawnmower. Peace at last. Or so I thought. Around noon, Linda knocked softly, wearing sunglasses and holding a manila envelope. "You'll hear from my lawyer," she said, tired, not angry. I took the envelope without a word and watched her walk away. I set it on the counter unopened and made lunch. Later, I checked social media. My friend had posted the footage and it had gone viral. Hundreds of thousands of views, comments cheering me on, memes of the bride slipping to metal riffs. It was absurdly validating. I wasn't the VY lane. I was the guy who fought back with sprinklers and chaos. The HOA and VY led me to the next meeting, tone respectful. I went, and the room greeted me like a hero. Linda didn't show too embarrassed, rumor said. I was voted onto the board easily. The first new rule? No events on private property without written consent, with stiff penalties. It passed unanimously. Someone called it the driveway clause. A journalist later quoted me, "Respect boundaries, or you'll get sprayed." Short and sweet. Days later, Linda's niece apologized, saying she didn't know Linda lied about my consent. We laughed over a thawed cupcake from the chaos. She and her husband were moving away. Smart move. Linda went silent, avoiding me completely. I ordered a new sign. Private property. Trespassers will be sprinkled and serenaded. Sometimes revenge isn't loud or legal, it's a well-timed sprinkler. A killer soundtrack. And the quiet that follows when the world cheers you on. My driveway was mine again, and justice? It arrived wet, loud, and unforgettable.